We get how uncertain the future is. We've come of age in a complex world, face to face with problems we didn't create. So what's gonna happen next? We are. Because our future is the future. The life we have chosen has prepared us for this. So we're going to build bridges and hospitals in a day. We're gonna save families from disasters and feed those left in the cold. We're going to do all this and more because we have an appointment with destiny. We invite you to join us. The next greatest generation is now.
Well, hello, good morrow. It's another day here on the Rally Cry Collegiate series, a Sunday to be specific, and of course, as always, we are presented by the Army National Guard. Relic and Gaugan on the mic, as per always. But Gaugan, we have ourselves something a little askew of the original plan. Here we were thinking we were going to be bringing the lovely ladies, gentlemen, and NBs out there a semi-final and then a grand final. Technically, we are giving them a grand final, but just not the grand final we were thinking of.
Yeah, I think you have to picture this as, 3/4 of a grand final, I guess, in a way. We'll explain exactly where we are in this bracket when we get to it in due time, but let's remind everybody why we're here in the first place. This is the third of 4 weekends of closed qualifier play in the Rally Cry Collegiate Series for Rocket League. All of these teams taking part are trying to amass as many points as possible to get a higher seed for the playoff bracket, which is coming in a couple weeks time. And once we get through those playoffs, there will be the distribution of the prize pool at the end of the tournament that all these players are looking forward to. But it's all about getting as many points as possible. There are big implications on this particular series, which we'll talk about as well, because both of the teams that we'll see play today are going to jump to the top of the leaderboard, whether they like it or not. They better be prepared to face the consequences, Relic, because this one series, all of a sudden, between Terps, Esports, and Drexel Dragons, we talked about it before things kicked off. Now, many more implications on this series than there may have been going into today coming from yesterday.
Indeed, their seeding could be greatly improved, whichever team ends up winning this series. And of course, seeding also very important for our playoff bracket in just a couple of weeks' time now. It's incredible to think how time flies when we're having fun. But once we hit that playoff bracket, that's of course when they start playing for the money, true and proper. A reminder then of our prize pools, not just of course for Rocket League, but for the Rally Cry Collegiate Series overall. $30,000 on the line across the likes of FGC, CS2, Madden College Championship, and of course here today we're focusing on that Rocket League series with $6,000, the prize pool at the end of this journey, a journey which ends on March 16th. Actually, that when the grand final is going to get underway for the playoff bracket. And yeah, as you have rightly alluded to, Gaugan, in fact, you've touched upon the point quite directly, and it's a good thing that you have, because both of these teams find themselves safe with a question mark in the top 16. I think it would require one heck of a final week of quote-unquote league play to be able to shift them outside of that top 16. I imagine both teams will probably want to turn up in a week's time, or maybe just one of them, because a reminder, folks, first place walks away with 100 points. And I think this is where it bears mentioning the rather unique situation that we have going on, because the eagle-eyed amongst you and those of you who were watching yesterday will remember, oh, hold on a second, but Drexel Dragons and University of Maryland Terps, that's one of our semi-finals, right? And you would be correct. The issue being, Gaugan, the other semi-finalists aren't here. So basically what we understand is Dallas, who we were expecting to be in the grand finals anyway, they are effectively guaranteed second by virtue of seeding. Their supposed opponents, USC Gamecocks, they are going to be classified fourth, as they would have therefore gone into the third, fourth playoff. So the winner of this series wins the entire thing by default. The loser doesn't go home with those 60 points, though. They only go home with the 40 that you will accrue for third place.
It's a bit of a rough shake when you think of it that way,
It's
but
crazy.
at the same rate, you know, the loser of this series would have been fighting for either 40 or 25 points if we had all 4 teams here. So I'm sure they'll take the 40 over the 25 when all is said and done. But you've hit the nail on the head. Everybody just needs to picture this as if the grand final and the third place match both effectively have a team already there who needs to forfeit said match. It's unfortunate, but we understand at the end of the day. What that does mean for both of these teams, however, is like you were talking about, this is one of the semifinals that was already supposed to happen if everything went to plan. Now, instead of fighting for the chance at 100 points on the table, they are fighting for said 100 points right here and right now. No second series to play, all on the line in this moment. And for both of these teams, where we talk about close matchups and, you know, opponents that you want to be beating to give yourself that confidence booster going into playoffs, I think Maryland and Drexel are both in a very similar boat, where if they don't get this win here, they start to question how much damage they can really do once we get to crunch time.
Yeah, because let's not mince our words here. I think even with the minimum of 40 points that you run away with today, as the loser of the series, you're pretty safe going into that last bracket. But the 100 points on offer for the winner almost guarantees you an easier run-in to that playoff bracket. So it really could be the difference between, and you mentioned the word yesterday, Galgan, the momentum and how early you can get the wins under your belt in terms of games, let alone series. So big quote-unquote money on the line here for Drexel Dragons and UMD as we get kicked off on game number 1.
You also have to consider with the table, UT Dallas still not playing today, but climbing up to 130 points. That will put them well out in front, at least for the time being. Plenty of other contenders just winning one event and walking off. Maybe they make a rogue appearance in weekend number 4. Other schools such as Oakland perhaps could come back from 10 points and try and make a run of it. So much on the line for both of these teams. First minute, though, of this game has been pretty cagey. And interesting note as well as we go into the rest of the series, Maryland now playing with JD Knight back in action, but it's Turtle still on the field. It's Boog who is not here for Maryland. So Hexy, Turtle, and JD. Interesting to see how this trio shakes out and how they try to fill in the gaps that Boog may have been occupying.
Very curious, isn't it? I'd say Boog was probably the most quiet of the trio yesterday, but it wasn't to say that their influence wasn't great. I think they provided such a great stable platform, or at least as stable a platform as could be made against the Cal side that was incredibly difficult to break down at times. That's a really nice challenge, by the way, by Kevin. But Hexy for me was the star man out and out. 2 of the best goals that we've seen the entire collegiate series thus far.
Another challenge up here, high towards the ceiling. Couple of misses for Maryland. Have to watch themselves. Center pass right out to X, goes wide. Prime chances. The Drexel does not want to take for granted. You can see the rotations coming through along that midfield line, that half rotation style of play. Now a quick transition off the own back wall as Barron tries to line one up, and that Octane sent back by Turtle. Quick blocks, proactive play from Maryland. The defense seems like they're warming up into it as we near the halfway threshold.
Indeed, as we approach that halfway threshold. This is game 1, a game 1 as you could find. Good chances for both sides. A couple of demos, a couple of shots across the bow. There's no real major legwork up as yet as both teams trying to figure out where best to strike next. Backboard. Oh, Kevin was looking for that drop down. Might end up getting it anyway because there was a bit of a kerfuffle on said backboard by UMD. Get away with it. Big demo on X. And JD Knight throws it downtown. Lucky to get away with it.
Another chance, perhaps, for Drexel if they can get something going quickly. They've got plenty of time to get to this ball, and Kevin takes just about all of it to try and set something up off the back wall, but nothing to come to fruition just yet. This kind of brings me back to the conversations we were having in prior series and prior weekends about game 1 and how it's supposed to feel. Both teams feel like they're just a half step away from jumping to the more ambitious offensive plays, but you really fault them at a certain point because it could be just trying to hold things back, not show all your cards right off the rip. It is a best of 7 now.
Can't fault Drexel Dragons for their overall game control. They've looked better and better as this game has rumbled on, and it's been a couple of blocks into the midfield, but UMD do not stay there for long. Damage is certain. Zerf goes far post and hits said post. Close, but not quite close enough. That's the second time that they've hit Woodward within this game. Trying to still lock down the scope. There's Baron back into the center. Zerf misses. Kevin has the better shot opportunity, but scuffs it high.
Tough looks for Drexel. You can see the offense starting to step up. The passing lanes are there, but finding some collisions with other players, not getting the shot on the angle, the power, just something not adding up, and it's every single sequence feels like the same, pieces falling into place, but maybe not fast enough. Good save on the call back from Zerf, and another block from Kevin allows Drexel to give themselves that breathing room on defense, but it's coming back at them quickly. Maryland now getting their first good looks.
You're right to say I wonder how this trio is going to shake out. It's certainly looked a lot more shaky than the trio that we had just 24 hours ago. JD Knight desperately trying to get into the action, but Turtle as well seems a little unsure of where to find themselves. Moving forward, that's where we want to see them. If JD Knights throw themselves completely out the play, Hexy playing anchor, you don't want to see it, but Turtle was set up, but where's JD Knight? It just feels like they're sort of talking across the phone right now, rather than working together as a team in the same room.
So now we go towards extra time, but to the back wall one more time here in game number 1, and middle of the field is where that ball sees its end. Overtime, we get to find out whether both of these teams are capable of scoring a goal today, which we hope would be the case, but JD Knight immediately blocked out early on. Feels like it's going to be a long battle as Zerf does not get the better of that shot.
Ran out of talent at the worst time possible. What a shame, because they had that goal on tenterhooks. Down the other side, Kevin for the quick one, but it's a little bit too quick. The shot too sharp in the first place. By the way, loving that Gentleman's Alpine pink decal. Big fan of this. There they are. Turtle in the right place at the right time. Which Turtle are they? They're the one that scored for Terps. That's what's most important here.
It's a fantastic angle on this shot. You have to give credit where credit is due, but again, drawing everybody from the defense into that near corner and then subverting expectations. The shot goes far side as if it even needed to, but that is a level of clinicality that these teams need to reach in order to win games convincingly, especially if we are going to continue with clean sheets on either side. 1 goal, 2 goal games. You have to be resolute in your defensive plan in transition, and unfortunately, that's just the one moment where Drexel steps out a bit too far from their own box and gets punished by, again, let's give credit, a fantastic angle on that shot from Turtle.
Yeah, it's so marginal though, but I would argue marginally in favor of Drexel Dragons. I think, like I mentioned earlier, as that game rumbled on, it felt to me like they were the ones with better control over the midfield. And this has got big echoes of the Terps Cal series from yesterday as well, where whoever controlled the midfield really controlled the shot creation. Still got to put away the shots, don't get me wrong, but you've won half the battle if you're able to hold and hunker down on those 100 boost pads. It limits so many counter-attacking possibilities for your opponents.
Exactly. That is absolutely the key to any strong offense. It starts from, obviously you expect the full field effort to always be in rotation for these teams, but I mentioned in the middle of the game, the half rotation style as well is something that we see a lot of teams adopt when they want to provide that high amount of pressure, shot after shot, just cycle through the midfield. But to your point, you don't have that sort of style of play if you're not controlling the boosts out there. It goes hand in hand. You need one to complete the other, and clearly Maryland had that slight edge to eke out the first of the series, but can they keep it going?
The edge was Turtle, and now the edge is Hexy. That is a gorgeous kickoff punishment. We've seen them do this a couple of times already this season. Turtle, lovely throw into the midfield. Hexy on the same wavelength. That's what I was waiting to see here. I think JD Knight's just got to sort of sit back for my money, Galgun, and let these two work, because when they work together, boy, do they work well.
One of the best ways to provide a response to the question, do you have it? Unfortunately, on the side of the Drexel Dragons, their paper is still left blank. They haven't put their name down yet, it feels, trying to find the writing utensils to do so. And University of Maryland, this Terps Esports side, just closing the case shut for the time being. But there's still so much left to play. There's still so much disruption being called on the back line. And yet somehow, finally, Kevin taps it home after what should have been a goal mere seconds earlier.
1, 2, 3, oh dearie me, how many times do you want to hit the woodwork before you finally put it home? Well, Kevin, at the very least, has the complete net at his mercy to shoot at. If he'd missed from there, I would have called that the most impressive feat this season.
But alas, all ends in a goal for the Drexel Dragons. They even things up as it feels rightful to do so. Both of these teams trying to stay lockstep with one another. It's Surf up high, just goes for the direct shot, and it works. Maybe thinking that the defenders had flip reset in mind, a just solid level of control, quick touch, defies expectations.
It's a great bit of shot accuracy as well, because so often we'll see the ball clipping the bar and going down, the classic Bardowski goal, of course, but you do also run the risk of it bouncing outwards and crucially not into the back of the net. So ensuring that it goes underneath the bar, big. Really appreciate that Zerf has still got that Rocky League sideswipe goal explosion as well. But a very quick turnaround then for the Dragons, starting to play on the form that we saw from game number 1, albeit without reward.
I'll look for the quick turnarounds for both teams as well. Transitions are where I'm a bit fixated right now. Obviously, these midfield holds now. Hexy brings it back in the face of the Drexel Dragons and forces them to back up, respect the space, get a save away where everybody's a bit too awkward in positioning. Hexy now rotates through yet again. No real help to be seen as Maryland just tried to bide their time, grab resources as they could. But the ball sneaks through and Zerf with a redirect opportunity, not on target, but still had somewhat of the desired effect for the Drexel Dragons as they near this 3-minute mark. Maryland trying to formulate these pushes through, but they're certainly being met with some well-earned resistance.
Staggered move forward comes to an end, and this throwaway is just going to fall back into the palms of Drexel Dragons looking to breathe fire on their opponents. Are they going to get burned? Are they going to find the scorch marks? Zerf, challenged well by Turtle, who moves forward, misses out on a 100 boost respawn. Through the middle is going to be Hexy. JD Knight onto the scene, completely flubs the shot. Good opportunity at that. Demo, Turtle on target. Big save from Kevin. Threw a smoke screen at that as well. Hexy now trying to throw one infield. Does so, but this one's going over the top of the goal. Back in central, but Turtle's not fancying it.
It's nice to see both teams, though, at least with some tallies on the board, but it feels like they're both looking for the keys to unlock that potential. What you would expect early on in the series, but plenty of scrappy shots finding their way through. Not a whole lot of power or conviction behind any of these plays just yet, but maybe in the sequences to come, we've become a bit more sure of what these players want to execute. Turtle, meanwhile, doing it all themselves, gets it to drop center, but nobody can get there fast enough. Here's Zerf on another redirect attempt, decides to take it to the ceiling instead and forces Hexy and Turtle to go, which leaves the passing lane open, but Baron puts it into the near post.
Right shot power, wrong shot accuracy, wrong starting position, I would argue as well, really. Wanted to wrap that in near post, but it's such a fine margin between hitting that woodwork and not, as we've already found out many times already for the Drexel Dragons. It's another challenge here for Zerf that gives his team a little bit of space to work with. Hexy's 0 boost, hoping that JD Knight's going to pick it up completely. He was wiped from the record books. Kevin's got a free net.
You know, sometimes players, cars, they all kind of blend together, you know? Beautiful removal. I mean, it is textbook. Just take the player out of the equation completely. You have no resistance. Free shot from that far side. Drexel Dragons, they look confident as ever. I really am starting to lose all of the skepticism and questions that I had for this team, because they clearly are drawing up plays with some quick momentum on the offensive side. University of Maryland, it feels like all I've seen for the better half of this game has been double commit saves, not because they want to, but because they have to.
It's interesting that you mention not being convinced about the Drexel Dragons as hold that thought for a moment as Hexy's finally gotten on the board for this one. Throw down field, and Zerf just isn't able to get any part of the ball, so Hexy's just simply dribbling it into the back of the net. one-goal game, 68 seconds left. But let's consider who Drexel Dragons have actually dropped out of each bracket to. Southern Miss Coca-Cola and UT Dallas, two teams who we now know at this point are probably considered within the top 5 of the entire tournament.
Yeah, this clearly is a Drexel Dragons team that, I mean, just their mere commitment to play each and every one of these weekends should tell you enough about how committed this squad is to making it work in this event. But University of Maryland, they're not an easy side to put away. They're right with them in terms of potential seeding as far as the leaderboard is concerned. And it's a series that's not going to be won easily, although Drexel is doing their best job to get this game back. We've got 30 to play. They're still with the lead, and they still want more.
89. Losing out so easily, and that's a good press ultimately from Drexel Dragons, although look at this, Terps starting to trip over each other once again. Those 2 games that Cal did pick up yesterday unfortunately were the hallmarks of those victories. Not exactly a free-flowing attacking side were Cal, but UMD made it look so. Time running out. And Drexel Dragons, that's another big throw downfield. Oh, Turtle completely flubs it, and it could not have ended up in a worse place. Let's see whether they can perform the full court carry well with a heavy touch like that. No chance. Drexel Dragons. That's another W in the column.
It's a great get back for them. It certainly is. We're all square at 1 apiece in the series, but now my attention, I think, rightfully shifts more towards Maryland. But in the sense of like that final sequence, yes, it's at 0 seconds. It's a bit of a stretch, but you do start to question. JD Knight had a lot of real estate on that sidewall, carried the ball all the way through. But as soon as it gets that backboard clear, right back where it came from, there's nobody from Maryland behind JD Knight to cover that. Everybody, I mean, at 0 seconds, maybe the call is push up to the midfield line, hope that JD Knight can get the center pass and take the shot. But I don't know, something in my analytical brain is saying put somebody center to take the shot, put somebody behind JD to send the ball back once it gets cleared. You're going a bit too deep, and there are plenty of other intersections in that particular game where Maryland could come out better than they did in the sequences that they created. But that's just how the game shakes out. You've got to take your chances when you get them, and Maryland, with all of the defensive double commits that I mentioned earlier, mitigate their chances to get solid looks on offense.
It's just disjointed. You know, I hate to say it, but they're really missing Boog. Boog was very much the anchor to this squad. Not that he wasn't willing to move upfield, like we're not talking about a structured sort of rotation, but what he did do really, really well was clean up. He did really well to just stay ahead of their defensive D and rotate to Turtle or Hexy and allow them to do their own thing. JD Knight, it's very clear to me that he's not really finding either player as successfully. Not only that, but he's pushing up a lot more aggressively than his teammate currently sitting on the bench. And it's not to say that JD Knight is a bad player necessarily, but the adaptation for UMD right now isn't even tactically. It's trying to figure out what the best role for each of these players are, because like you say, they're tripping over each other and it is so unnecessary.
There are some issues such as those that you struggle to fix if you're any team in the course of a best of 7, especially a best of 7 that has turned into a de facto grand final here for the 3rd weekend. So you really got to have these things figured out, and Maryland certainly can get to that stage, but they've got to prove it to themselves before they do to anybody else. Turtle has to jump early to take this ball away just inside of the first minute of play here with the series all square. The Drexel Dragons look like they're only getting stronger by the minute, forcing Maryland to take touches that they don't want to play the ball in areas that are tough to get to for Maryland. Another send off the sidewall, but Hexy's there on the read, has control on the air dribble and can't bump away the defense. A re-rotation in from Turtle will not do anything as Kevin clears.
Drexel Dragons are doing really, really well to just avoid these potential bumper demo situations, but eventually, quick, sharp, as you mentioned earlier, half rotations on this midfield line. Great challenge from JD, allows Turtle to just wall up this one towards the net, and because that last defender's pushed up just a tad too high with very minimal boost to work with, it means that they're simply not able to make the touch in the first place. Great punishment from UMD. Long way to go yet.
You were right on it, though. That challenge from JD made the entire sequence, because with Kevin up so high towards the ceiling with the ball in firm control, the rest of Drexel trusts Kevin to pull up a sequence like that. And as soon as it's robbed and immediately sent for a pass to another Maryland player, the goal feels as good as scored. Now Drexel on the other side as they continually attempt these redirect plays for Zerf downfield. 2 misses, though, and a third with a huge save on the goal line from Hexy allows Turtle to bring it back.
Oh, Baron, you had everywhere to shoot and you shot there. Oh, man, given a free save, I should say, UMD, and it comes the ball towards their net yet again, and it's Hexy on hand to put out the fires once more. Drexel Dragons only had themselves to blame here, I feel, for not getting this one tied up. There's still an opportunity to move forward here. It comes from Kevin, commits 2. That's another good challenge here from the third man yet again, this time Turtle. JD loses it, back into Kevin, looking to try and get the dunk, does so, but the ball falls harmlessly wide.
Very interesting setting, though, for this particular series thus far. Turtle with a grounded play, tries to bump it up towards the bar. Kevin denies, JD puts it home. It's pure chaos on the goal line for Drexel, and they can't stop it.
From Knight to King, he's found his crown. Very simple looking goal. And again, it kind of is because of Drexel Dragons' inadequacies. On that backboard, so much panic. All 3 players surrounding the play, but nobody willing to influence it. And now down the other side, JD Knight with a decent save, and this ball ricochets away, buying more time for Terps, holding this 2-0 lead.
And an adjustment that I've seen made, I wanted to talk about how much these teams want to play towards the air, towards the ceiling, but it feels like Maryland are grounding themselves a bit more, and it's working out. Yes, we see flicks like these from Turtle upon entering the offensive zone, but for the most part, Maryland seems comfortable to try and make Drexel as confused as possible. It's worked wonders here in Game 3. There's still time to go, but Maryland continue to find clear after clear, and I think that's the key right there. We don't really have to spend time looking at Maryland making defensive double commits if they're not forced to play any defense at all. They get these clears so quickly, it feels like they're just not ever stuck.
I'm appreciating Terps leaning into the fact that they are a little bit disjointed. All it needed was that one slight adjustment. Good save, Zerf. My goodness, that was a lovely read. But they're leaning into the fact that, okay, if we're going to try and play the proper way and it's not working, let's just wait and see what the teammate on the ball does next. Case in point, Hexy's given this free run. Nobody needs to interfere with this. Nobody needs to be in the right place for a passing play, because all the legwork has been done by that first player forward. It makes the goal difference 3-0. And you got to say, it's going to take a minor miracle for Drexel Dragons to try and pull this one back to even an OT situation.
And it's unfortunate for Drexel because that sequence starts all because of an offensive triple commit at the near post. They saw the green light, they tried to run it, and the traffic light switched faster than they could react, which is, again, truly unfortunate. And the spectator or the replay cam didn't give us the full picture. I could have sworn there was a defender a bit closer, but I think they rotated out into being demoed and being removed from the sequence entirely. At the end of the day, Drexel's gonna have chances like that that they need to bury. That triple commit spawned because of a 3-on-1 or a 3-on-2 that heavily favored them, but immediately in the transition, right? It's a crux for many good teams on that track to becoming a great team, trying to make sure you always have the resources to stop the first push back into the zone, because you know that your opponents are going to try and put a shot on target as fast as possible, and that's clearly what Maryland were able to do.
Well, in game number 3, it's all about the terrific Terps here. They run away with a 4th goal just for show, and they really put Drexel Dragons back to ground level here. It's 2-1 in the series, and Drexel Dragons with their first real misstep in this series. I feel they looked okay in game number 1, were, at least in my mind, a better team. Looked far better in game number 2, but in game number 3, too many mistakes in my mind, Gaugan. And now the eternal question, how'd you go about fixing them?
I think that's a very reasonable discourse to enter now, because you could also take it by the side of, well, okay, the ball is still up in the air, so I'll hold my breath on this point, because I know as soon as I say anything, it'll be immediately canceled out. A couple of lobs here, and nobody's getting to that one in time. Maryland, with a clean sheet here in game 3, which is what my point was going to center around. You mentioned that Drexel looked decent in game 1, and I agree with you. We went to overtime, took about 30 seconds to end, felt like it could have gone either way. But this is now 2 scoreless losses out of the 3 games that we've played for the Drexel Dragons. It begs the question of offensive efficiency being kept up over the course of the series. But at the same time, I see your point. I completely understand it, that game 1 and game 3 feel like they are much different conversations. This was a much weaker, slower showing in comparison, whereas game 1, both defenses were operating, fairly well. They got the job done when they needed to. This time around in game 3, Maryland just didn't really have to play defense. And shocker, when a team doesn't have to play defense, they don't really make defensive mistakes.
Yeah, it's the difference between not for the want of trying and wait, did they really try? Again, they did try. They just ran into a brick wall this time. And again, this is more for me down to Terps and their ability to work into what makes them fallible, at least at the moment. This trio is not as synchronous as the trio that we saw yesterday. I don't think they're going to become more synchronous because they've had 3 games, and in each of those 3 games there are definitely issues to speak of. But because instead of relying on their natural ability, they're now just taking a hot second to say, okay, let's see what y'all do next. Okay, it's not generating as many chances. Okay, it's not as pretty in terms of eye candy in front of us. What it is doing is it's allowing them to set up defensively far, far better. I was about to eat my own words if I forgot to touch on that more, but we head into game number 4 now, and it's a real good opportunity for Terps to really put themselves in the hands.
Players have a great ability of just, obviously not listening to us, but
yes,
by pure, I don't know what superpower it is, but just completely downloading everything we think about them and then throwing it right back in our faces. And we welcome that challenge, because I'd love to see both of these teams go to game 7 and then we get a 15-minute overtime and it only ends, because the ball somehow moves so quickly that it goes into both nets at the same time. I think that, that would truly be the icing on the cake to this, now essentially grand final, but somehow that doesn't go in, but
wow.
Okay, you know what? Fair enough.
JD Knight, that was right up there for attempt but not quite of the season. Really, really unfortunate. Fell on the ball perfectly as well. Save off the line and right down the other end. The man who saved that shot. It's the Red Baron. Daka, daka, daka.
An incredibly fast strike here. Look at the speed, giving JD Knight no chance whatsoever. That's the level of pace you've got to play with at the top of the box. Drexel Dragons, they've proven time and time again they're not afraid to commit heavily to the offensive plays, but that level of confidence has to be backed up by the mechanical skill. That's one of the sequences where it is. Baron knows exactly where they need to be right when the ball gets there.
Oh, look at this. He's followed up with a demo. The 4-2, it just passed it field. Bobby 1 and isn't able to beat the 1, but on the way out, that's a demo on JD Knight. It's Baron over the top of Hexy on the chase, goes for the straight shot, their post. Oh, what a save from JD Knight. It's metaphorical fingertip stuff. It's one for the camera. But look at Drexel Dragons on the hunt again. Infield to serve, backboard. JD lurks and waits, but isn't able to get it too far. Hexy also forced into his own corner, but finally navigates his way around Baron.
I don't know. I truly don't tend to believe in half of the random trends that I spout during these casts, but I'm starting to think that if Drexel score, they won't lose. It just feels like a different era about this team when they gain that confidence of an early lead. Another power clear just goes bar down, and Baron pretty much posthumously grabs this goal, just respawns right at the celebration.
Forget the dog fighting in the air. This is from behind the trenches. Ka-chow, indeed. Again, a little bit of fortune as it dips underneath the crossbar and then, of course, heads on in rather than out. But they'll take that good bit of luck, Drexel Dragons. Baron is feeling it right now. And Turtle, look at him pulling away here as Baron wins another challenge. Forced all the way back. It's a big power play. Demo lining up for Kevin. Oh, weak sauce. Easy save.
I still struggle to get around the fact that this feels like the most seesaw series that I've seen in quite some time. It could not be more cut and dry to me. Drexel Dragons feel like they've hit another gear. Maryland just hoping to get a mere waft of the scent of the ball. A nice pick there, but Hexy was too far forward for the center pass. Turtle grabs it anyway off the back wall. Everybody's stunned, but Zerf with a fantastic run to get a piece of that.
JD9 looking for Hexy. Oh, tried to go. I mean, it wasn't even a round the corner option, but they're forced all the way back. And look at this JD with the interception on the shot before it even lifts off the hood of that Drexel Dragons player. Baron on the backboard, looking to buy time. This, I mean, you say it's a topsy-turvy series. I think UMD, with a couple of slices of luck on their side of the pie, they're going to find themselves 2 goals pretty easily. So scoring this third or locking down the hatches, essential for Drexel Dragons heading into the final 90.
The touch from Baron to try and play to the opposite corner where space is aplenty. Hexy plays it low and slow. It's successful, forces everybody out, but Turtle pushed far forward as well. Everyone from Maryland buying into the prospects of what could be. Baron gets an entrance demo into the zone, sets up for Zerf for a center pass. It's right along the goal line, but nobody can make the run in time.
Aaron stops it at the 50. Turtle 2 lifts it up for Hexy. They're working with minimal boost. And you can see why. JD Knight completely isolated. Turtle. You got JD on 100 again. Quick turn, but Baron throws it back into the orange half. JD Knight up against the backboard. Hexy downfield. Oh, overcommitment. Big overcommitment, but it's wide and thrown away by Kevin.
Again, so many chances for Maryland, but it feels like they're too far away from the ball where it matters most. That one's on target, and JD Knight saves the side. Hexy off the sidewall, forced to double that one away. JD, not the power you want. The Turtle will try and catch and collect. It's set up well for Baron, though, trying to get the read just right, and does not do so, but they've taken enough time off the clock. Maryland does not have the momentum behind them to get this ball going for a push for a first goal, let alone the second that they need. JD finally finds the clear through, but it looks like we are well ready to head to a 2-2 series, familiar territory in this third weekend of play. They have that one final drive, could have had a couple seconds at the end, but at 0, it hits the bottom of Drexel's box. We're all square in the series.
The epitome of offense is the best defense on that one. I think that the scoreline somewhat flattered Terps, to be very honest with you. I think this could have easily been 3 or 4. Not to say that UMD didn't deserve a goal themselves, but at the same time, everything that could go wrong for them really did go wrong for them. And also, this is just one of those games that proves that sometimes the one pop-off player really can make the difference. Baron was unstoppable.
And that's the thing, is on the other side, like, if you want to have the conversation about pop-off players and individual ability, you kind of go back towards Maryland with that, but I'm not sure who you're looking at, because you've had chances for Hexy to do fantastic things on defense. You've had JD setting up on offense. Turtle's been doing a little bit of both, so maybe you spread people out that way, but the idea for Terps Esports right now, again, goes back to that cohesive unit. We're still asking questions about this, adding Turtle, subtracting Boog situation, because in the prior weekends, all we knew was just JD, Hexy, and Boog. We did not have Turtle. Then yesterday, we get Turtle in place of JD. All looks mostly well and good for Terps, and now something's not really clicking. We know that they have it within them. We're not trying to say that this is absolutely, a worst possible case scenario for
terrible.
Terps Esports. Like, we're not trying to put them in the mud here. They'd all wipe the floor with the both of us in terms of raw skill, but at the end of the day, you do start to ask those questions. What would be different? I know you've touched on it a lot with Boog trying to take a more centralized and rooted approach. But when you need that rock and you need that security, because the Drexel Dragons step up their offense time and time again, you got to start asking questions.
And by your formula, Galvin, that means that it's now 3-2 in the series, and it means the Drexel Dragons is on to match by 6 seconds in post-start. Call that one immediately, but perhaps the form book is something that we should read a little more into. Wait and see. Certainly a second goal would do them the world of good. Off his own bar goes Turtle. Baron goes for the sweep around. Turtle, that's a much better clearance than at any point I feel that we saw in game number 3. Second touch. No, it's the follow-up shot from JD Knight, but far too readable by Zerf. Back into the midfield.
Still feels like we're making progress for Maryland, though. It's a 1-2-3. Yes, it doesn't have the power that they want, but look at this. Double
Big
up, demo on the goal line, and somehow Zerf gets the save from down underneath, and the clear to boot goes near post. Oh, tries to put it in themselves, but should have left it for Kevin.
Oh no, oh you got a snort out of me. That was hilarious. Comms anyone, please. First minute, come and gone. And Drexel Dragons, I mean, it could be 1-1, it could be 2-0. So perhaps 1-0 is a decent reflection. Scratch that! Turtle equalizer.
Check that octane for illegal weight usage. That thing was launched on an angle at 119 kph. No doubt about it, Turtle buries that shot, and Maryland want to get back into this series sooner rather than later.
Wow, didn't even clock the Baron with the mouse sports decal. How old are you? No checks for that right now, of course, as JD Knight blazes the trail and Hexy's turned the game on its head.
I guess they're back. The door has been blown wide open. Everybody's stuck in the corner. Say it with me. Recipe for disaster for the defense, and a nice far angle shot just to secure it. It's a quick run of 2 right now, and we are still so early on in the game.
I do love afternoon tea, but listen, the crumpets come after the game of Rocket League. You know, don't huddle up, don't sit around the table when there is a goal to be saved away. Drexel Dragons looking to upset the form book then currently, as we've currently got an opening goal that has been turned around. But still with 3 minutes 30 left on the clock, there is an opportunity here. And honestly, I was looking at Baron thinking, why is he hitting that in the opposite direction? No, the answer is because he's a blue player playing in red. Perhaps some mind games that we hadn't considered earlier. Upfield, Baron, Kevin, no free shot. Good save away.
See, I like that you bring that up, though, because that affects me at a level that I have not been able to get to people about. Like, you need to have the red cards on the orange team and not on the blue team, but I don't know. Some players are just completely built different, and that does not affect them. I don't know how, but I wish them the best of luck, because honestly, it gets to me. It really does. So I'm glad that you make me feel seen in that.
No, it's true. It's so true. And I do think that there is a little bit of mind games in it, most certainly. Trust me, when you haven't, well, when you've seen, hold the thought. Listen, I was going to go on a whole long rant, but the rant that we need to have right now is how on earth do Terps continue to forget how to throw the ball away successfully? Baron is offered a free shot on target, practically unopposed, just before the halfway mark. And we are back to an equal situation where Drexel Dragons are in the ascendancy.
See, if there's anything that Terps Esports can't be forgetting right now, it's that Baron exists. It kind of feels like Drexel Dragons' offense for the time being is oops, all Baron, which is not a bad thing. When a player is hot, you gotta let the shooter shoot. But at the same time, Maryland has to start marking plays like that. It's a shot that goes into the top of the box on a lob and gets sent to the opposite side, so not the most powerful opportunity like the shot we saw from Turtle earlier on in this game. But at the same time, you have to watch when the shooter is going to shoot. Again, this read is a tough one for anyone to make, but what a setup and what a finish.
There's 3 players, and it's only Turtle who goes up for the save. There's an opportunity to just go 90 degrees up in your own corner. If you, I think it was Turtle there in the right place, but no, too much power on the shot. Baron is legit vibing right now. And Drexel Dragons, well, it's time to read the textbook again, Gauga, because they're looking to prove them right.
Does feel like Drexel, who found a little bit of prime Holland in Baron, at least for the time being, set up for all the tap-ins. But listen, they're not going to fix an unbroken system here. It's clearly working wonders. They've got about 90 seconds to close this one up and continue the theory that if Drexel score at least 1 goal, then they win the game. I honestly really commend the team for being able to pull something off like that.
80 seconds. Less than. Hexy. Flip, goes central, it's all Hexy, sets up, Turtle, and it's Baron. Oh, it's all the way into the back. Oh my god, how can you allow this? How can you even not expect this? Virulent.
Go through the entire series to get to this point where now this is the biggest mental hurdle. Like, you're not calling go next. There's a minute and change left. Maryland have to go next right now. The next is now. But at the same time, Drexel have unlocked something that just feels like it stun locks Maryland on defense. They don't know where they want to be. However, great jump from Turtle to get it to Hexy, who just had free real estate, and it just gets thrown right back at Drexel.
It's a great pressure from Turtle, and the follow-up. That was on target anyway before Hexy put the goal in. Doesn't matter who claims it. That's a one-goal game. Going back to your point, pass to Baron, you score. It's as simple as that right now. Because UMD are blocking him! Oh no! Oh no! Oh, that's a big yikes! 4-4!
And the worst part of all that is that that initial challenge was not going in. JD Knight had to tap it home. Oh dear, oh me. University of Maryland, they tie things up for all of the chaos that was wrought by the Drexel Dragons. It's all been wiped clean. It feels like we are as close as we have ever been, it seems.
Kevin was in heaven, but now he's taking a bit of a trip down the river Styx. 2 goals that he's been directly involved in, but not the ones for his own team. Baron goes central, but that's so easily given up. JD Knight doesn't get the ball, but does get the player. It is Kevin, of course it is. Turtle, that's going to be Baron over the top of him. Hexy goes up, and this game has been blown wide open, and look at how far apart UMD are. Good shot! Even better save! The follow-up is saved again by Baron!
They've got to be thanking Baron so much right now. They bought so heavily. Zerf was cheating upfield to think the ball would sneak through, but it doesn't. Another touch to the sidewall. Drexel may have the last laugh in regulation. Baron has to back up to corral the ball, however, and does not have the momentum to push it. 0 seconds. Zerf racing, but that's beamed down towards the side wall in the bottom of it. Drexel, Maryland. Decisive overtime here in Game 5. Winner goes to double match point.
I think the winner of this overtime probably goes on to win the series, Gaugan. Drexel will be pleased that they at least have the OT form. Of course, took the 30 seconds to break through the barricades of UMD. Zerf has done well to avoid one. He stops it, makes that ball stagnant, but Turtle does get the last laugh. Kevin forced to go to the far side of the field. Up and away he goes. Flip reset. Over to the far post. Turtle tried to dunk him. Wasn't having any of it. Falls kindly to Hexy, who goes into no man's land, but is back into Drexel possession.
Really gonna watch yourself here, Kevin. That offensive chance was as good as it could have been, but defensively playing with fire and is able to get out without being burnt. Zerf can't get the challenge on the half-lip, however, but it's played central yet again, and Zerf with a redirect to a central pass, back pass. Baron picks it up, goes up high. Kevin trying to block off the back wall, flip reset into the backboard and pancakes it to tap it up higher. Zerf just trying to play this one down. Is there any shot for Baron to take? Not so. It's sent to the corner. Kevin, though, trying to set up for Baron again. Zerf has another chance with JD still on the back wall, but Turtle pries it from outside in. Baron sends it back. Zerf with one more chance.
No way.
JD says no.
Drexel have set up the stalls. It's the siege of Helm's Deep in Rocket League form. And again they come, but there's still another save in the pockets of UMD. This time it's JD Knight, and now it's Hexy moving downfield. And they do so successfully. Bit of a double commit actually there for Drexel Dragons in their eastern corner. Turtle now, I think that's the safe play, and it's the right play as well. It's loose though. Kevin, free shot, and it's in off the home player. 5-4, 9-goal thriller in the favor of Dragons.
You've done them dirty in the worst way possible, but it was all the pressure built up to a boiling point for the Drexel Dragons, and they capitalize when it matters most, forcing the own goal out at the crossbar. So many shots finding their way to that general area, and finally one sticks with a little help from their opponents on the other side. The Drexel Dragons, hey, they continue the idea that if they score, then they win. And I'm loving every second of it, because something about this team just thrives off of that confidence that they gain once they understand that Maryland can be scared on defense and not always play the ball where they needed it to go. As soon as Drexel get that understanding, it feels like they just run away with it.
You know, and on this one as well, I think I look at Zerf in particular, and there are a couple of occasions where Zerf is trying to be the hero, trying to get the goal, when really, and you said it perfectly earlier, just leave it. You've got, I mean, maybe there's no call from behind, and so perhaps then the blame can be slightly shifted off him, but also use your head in that moment. Are you really going to score? Are you really that good, or are the angles impossible to score from? Which, admittedly, at 100 miles per hour in the middle of a Rocket League game, that's kind of difficult to expect anybody to keep their head. However, it is what the best players do. And if Drexel Dragons want to get this one over the line, less of that, more of the team play, please.
Meanwhile, I mean, you could say the same thing for Terps Esports in terms of team play. That shot I saw from Turtle off of the pass, a beautiful shot down from close to the ceiling with pace, didn't even hit the ground. More of that, please, and I will be a very happy camper. They will need more of that as we now head to the first of 2 games that can close this series out in favor of the Drexel Dragons. 2 on the trot for Terps Esports needed in order to take this essentially grand final win of the 3rd weekend of Rally Cry Collegiate Series play.
It might not be a playoff qualifying win. Both of these teams practically locked in now, but it most certainly is an extra 100 points on the board that will help you on your way in a couple of weeks' time. That's a little bit too sharp a shot here as Zerf nicks it off Hexy, moves forward actually, and gets it past JD Knight as well, and gets the 100 steal, and gets the back pass, almost gets the goal as well. Turtle with a double save off the line, still getting involved is Kevin, but finally UMD get it clear.
It's a great sequence, if only missing the last final hoorah for the Drexel Dragons. They had to back up, grab resources, and you saw how long they were waiting for Maryland to push the ball out as if they had anything in their tank. They had to exhaust everything just to get the save. Zerf, beautiful redirect there, and Kevin punches it home. Finally, we've been seeing Zerf go through so many redirects. This one is the best one by far.
And you know what? I bet he was going for goal, but at least this one works out. It is absolutely the time to push and go for the punishment because all 3 UMD players have gone so far upfield that practically any backboard attempt is going to be unobstructed. You're going to have that setup opportunity, if not a free shot on goal. And that's exactly what Drexel Dragons do, is the series in the palm of their hands. Oh, what another save from JD Knight, and another one. They are pulling everything out the bag.
Just look at how they move. Control on both ends of the field.
No
but
way!
that is a crazy pitch that goes off the post, sent to the bottom corner. Hexy capitalizes. The ball's moving too quickly for anybody to comprehend.
I've been trying to stop my screeches and screams in commentary, but when stuff like this happens, it's difficult to contain myself. Another huge save, but it's the follow-up actions that make all the difference once again. And Hexy, he's been so quiet comparatively speaking to last series, finally gets a crucial goal. It might be the most important goal of this series. A reminder, if UMD lose, they are finishing 3rd.
Early goings still in this game 6. Zerf with a back pass. It may not work out. Couple of misses, and they immediately get punished. The pressure from Turtle was too much to bear.
2 for 2. And that's a horrid back pass, especially with nobody rotating back in, ready to make the call. Felt a little bit out of desperation, perhaps a bit too much expected of his teammates there. But Drexel Dragons have been in this position before. In fact, it's exactly the same situation to last game, Gauden. And we know how that one finished up.
Certainly looking to get a couple quick ones if they can, but far too many back passes for their liking are they forced to play, these Drexel Dragons. Now sent to the sidewall. Kevin with an initial touch right back into the hands of Turtle, who's doing a whole lot of work. Hexy demoed. That thins out the numbers. Kevin trades it back as the ball goes far corner, and JD's going to be the first one to the touch. Some speed, some pace behind the Maryland offense is necessary right now, and they're starting to unlock it. They just need to find the clean touches away from Drexel Dragons players.
The 1 goal conceded was through the high press. The 2 goals that they have scored also through the high press. High risk, high reward. It's something that they've needed to do, Terps, but it's the play style that suits them best, even with this slightly adjusted roster. Moving out from the back, JD Knight can't get past Baron. Rule 1, rule 1, rule nothing. It doesn't mean anything, Gauden. It's disrupted immediately.
You know what? I respect it. I'm going to go on the record. I understand. Break it early. Get back to some sense of normalcy here for these teams, especially for Maryland. They want to keep this momentum going, not really shake up the play style too much. They've got a lot of good things working for them. Midfield is starting to come back under Maryland's control. Great method of falling back down on that ball, but it's been flicked over the top, and there's nobody to get there.
A slow roller, you feel helpless in that moment. And mercifully for Terps, there was no Drexel Dragon in sight. Turtle is down to Zerf, who throws it back to sender. Kevin's lurking, but JD Knight manages the situation beautifully. Baron goes near post looking for Zerf as well. Spikes up high. Kevin, waterfall down. No, Baron can't get a piece of it. The runaway, JD Knight. Zerf's back in town. Turtle doesn't go central. Was looking for JD Knight again, actually. A little bit too complicated, mismanaged to play. But look at this, the timer elapsing at a rate of knots, Gaugen. Just 60 seconds and change.
Still decent ways to play the challenges here. Hexy gets clear. It's almost 2-0, but Zerf gets back in time to secure a bit of a power clear to the midfield line. Baron looking for a center pass, dives it up to Kevin and finds the gap, dead center of the target.
Uh-oh, it's Baron again. It's a lovely pass. It's in a horrible area if you are that last man, because it's just outside the D. You're setting up, you're expecting a more direct shot, and unless you've got a body blocker in front of you, that's going to be a shot that's heading your way. If you don't make that save, it's heading into the back of the net. Turtle looking to do the same right down the other side. Interception, but between Baron and Zerf, they've done well enough to get it away. If this heads to overtime once more, Gaugen, I fear for UMD.
In a game more so than the most recent ones where Maryland feels like they have a better right to take it all and force game 7, they still need at least one more to secure it. Hexy now with 30 seconds to play, up high, has both teammates down in support, but may look to do it all himself. And what a delivery from Hexy.
The Rainbow Six Siege Invitational's going on right now, and this one an absolute sledgehammer from Hexy. Completely dunks on one. The second can only help but watch. It's another go-ahead goal with only 24 seconds left. Is that the one to take us to game 7?
It's a strong kickoff for Drexel Dragons, but they lose possession immediately, brought back into the high corner. Baron, first one to go. Kevin is wide, waiting for somebody to pass it down central, but nobody's there. Surf off the back wall, doesn't connect, and now it's all about taking time off the clock. But here goes Kevin back the other way. It's a clear touch, but no support system inbound. Turtle plays it high. That's a dangerous spot. It's up off the back wall. Hexy with an initial touch to take it away. Tries to play it to the one area where it's safe, but Baron is there waiting. Another center pass. Zerf goes right into the lane. Kevin now to try and block. A second touch keeps it up even longer, although it goes back to the Drexel zone. Baron can immediately get a touch, and everybody else stretches for it. Game 7 on the way.
With so many of the big teams not here, with UT Dallas dropping out, this bracket becomes one of the most exciting, if not the most exciting, of the Rally Cry Collegiate series thus far. Again, big shout out to our lovely partners in the Army National Guard presenting you all this action. And game 7 then. What do you know, Gaugen? Drexel Dragons can score and Terps can win. It's all up for debate now.
Yeah.
All the form is out the window. Who knows?
I've lost everything at this point in time. I was fully convinced, and you know, I've had my world absolutely rocked and shocked, but that's besides the point. I am very proud of what Maryland were able to do to close out this game, because it finally feels like they backed up that fast high press that they like to execute with the efficiency that they needed to win games with it, which is a great adjustment to make over the course of a best of 7. If you're not feeling it immediately, get into that zone. And even though Maryland, I mean, you can't really make the case that they weren't feeling it immediately. Game 3 was a confident 4-0 win for Terps Esports. Even, you know, in the close and tightly contested game 1, they were able to win that in overtime. So clearly the offensive presence was there from the start. It's just been bits and pieces trying to make everything click, and there's no better time to make everything click than the end of a series like this. So you've set yourselves up for success. You've done just about everything that you could up to this point to get here. Now, these next 5 minutes are all about cementing that play style, cementing that legacy here for this team, and really showing that you know how to dictate the pace.
But cometh the hour, cometh the player, Gaugen Hexy. Not anonymous necessarily, but definitely a shade of what we saw yesterday. I should say a shadow, really, that's the accurate saying, but I wanted to be a little bit more fancy, but he brought out the fireworks in that last game. And that, for me, was the difference maker. That huge third goal which was only a goal that you thought someone of his quality could score. I don't know. It was looking good, but you've given the Baron another free goal, and it's a lead for Drexel yet again.
Another tally to add on to Baron's sheet. Yes, but so much of it spawns from before that happens. The midfield hold for Maryland falls through. Nobody can really formulate a clear fast enough. And far too often we've seen the defenders get stuck, but all of a sudden, Baron, the setup of dreams, the demo on the air dribble doesn't find the goal, but gets enough of a setup.
Our sacrificial car goes through one, bumps the other. Kevin couldn't miss. 2-0 within the space of 40 seconds. And I love this strategy from the Drexel Dragons, or at least, I mean, to call it a strategy is a little bit of a stretch, but I love this for the Drexel. Oh, Dragons, my goodness, almost self-sabotage there. The Surf gets a save he knows nothing of. If you can bury UMD nice and early, they're not going to have the amount of chances that they're hoping for, but they're surrounding this blue net, and finally a hole has been found in it.
I understand that it's game 7 and teams are going to get scrappier, but it is utterly insane how many chances we've seen in the first minute of play that have taken place solely within the scoring box of either side. So much chaos brought by these offenses, and yet the defenses for the side of Drexel Dragons standing as tall as ever. Maryland, they've let a couple through, but they've certainly had their positioning, at least in the general area. But I'm still watching for these teams playing slower touches, being caught out of position. Once the clears come through, you really need your first person in the rotation to be confident, because as soon as it falls past them, the dominoes seem to fall in line, and everything runs against you for a scary sequence like this where Hexy gets one back.
How on earth does it come to this from two players missing the ball right down the other side? Zerf, or first touch, demoed out the equation. Hexy with a goal on the board, 1 goal game, and that is huge for the team in orange to have gotten one on the board, looking for a quick second, and Kevin makes another save.
Always got to keep your opponents on their toes. Take the first shot on target, force them to use the resources, but Drexel Dragons don't look too perplexed about said situation. They've gotten the ball back into the orange half, and all of a sudden, one errant miss is all it takes. Waterfall down, and Zerf picks it up.
It's down here. I have no idea what Hexy was thinking there. Or was it JD Knight? My apologies, I couldn't quite catch it, but that was such an egregious action to take. You are miles away from the challenge. You prioritize the rotation back. It was 3v1. Turtle was completely isolated. I don't blame him for not being able to make that save, and all of the good work to get it back to a 1-goal game, it's undone, except there's only half the game left to do it again.
Turtle with a quick challenge, however, sends it pretty much on target, and a double up high up in the air. No immediate capitalization as Hexy is trying to take a pot shot towards the crossbar and set something up for the future. Another close double up, but again, Maryland are so far spaced away, you don't really need to feel too much pressure to immediately get the save, but you gotta watch yourself. Shots like that from Turtle, who has consistently hit the ball with enough force to get it done, can seriously catch you off guard on the rotations. Kevin comes through to save another one away. Here goes Turtle for one more center attempt. The demo JD almost read too deep into it, but it really was as simple as just shoot the ball.
Big Game 6 jitters from Drexel Dragons. They're stepping off and stepping into more defensive positions, and because they're sitting pretty and prioritizing defensive position but stagnant defensive positions, it gives UMD the opportunity to go for strafing runs. Go and find those demos, go and find those bumps. You set it up, you set up good comms with your teammates. That's a free goal on a plate, as we just saw in action. Drexel Dragons need to play proactively, otherwise they might be at risk of throwing this away.
Gonna watch University of Maryland pushing up into the offensive zone. They've got plenty of real estate. JD at the midfield line goes wide initially. Turtle turns around on a quick rotation from that midfield boost. Forces Baron into play early, but so many resources dwindling now for the Drexel Dragons. Hexy wants a bump and finds it on Deserve. Kevin with a quick pop. It could turn into a 2-on-1. So quick play needed from Turtle, but enough time falls right into his hands there on the ground. And the transitions are paramount right here. Hexy wants to bury a double, but Kevin says no.
Kevin call off Baron there, who was preparing for the jump. Kevin had it covered, no worries, he says. Bit of a scuff touch. Baron takes control, throws it into no man's land. Turtle through the corner, picks up the 100, and away he goes, uncontested by Zerf. But that's a 50 that commits 2 players from Maryland. Hexy, Baron gets a piece of it. That's going to fall kindly to Zerf, who does plus 180 on the dive. Throws the shot. Baron helps it on. JD Knight registers the save. Baron up, a little boost. Infield, Zerf. Oh, that was extravagant, but the ball was sky high.
Could have been the series sealing goal, and Zerf was still look for it, forcing 2 at the near corner, and it squeaks far side. Kevin could have put this series on ice.
It's a real shame for UMD, who were pushed back just a little too far, and the double commit between Turtle and Hexy. Again, we've praised their synergy in the past, but somebody's got to go to that far post to cover up a situation such as this. Doesn't matter if it's a 50-50 or a 25-75. It's physics, baby.
We'll see if physics can be in favor of UMD in this Terps Esports side. They've got 20 seconds to score 2. Demos galore in the corner. On to Baron, but it's not going to do anything against Kevin, who rolls all the way down the side wall, and they tack one more on for show. I know it says semifinal, but the Drexel Dragons are 11 seconds away from winning the 3rd weekend of play.
Yeah, get the contract gif out, because this one is signed, sealed, and delivered so handsomely by Zerf, and indeed the entire Drexel Dragons roster, who just found the right moments in this Game 7 to make Terps Esports pay. Baron has been outstanding, the MVP for me, and finally their potential has been realized. They drop out the competition to Southern Miss. They drop out the competition to UT Dallas. This time, they've gone all the way. It's 100 points.
It's a fantastic end to this weekend of play. The Drexel Dragons, I mean, I maintain the fact that they were, when they were on it, one of the most confident looking teams that I've seen in all of these weekends and all of these matches that we've seen. When they had it, they clearly had it. And I think the reason this goes to 7, much like some of the earlier series we've seen, both from Drexel and other teams that have gone the distance, there have been moments where it's been figured out. You know, it's always equated to a chess match where you're making move after move, adjustment after adjustment, and trying to come out the better with the advantage on the other side. Drexel Dragons managed to do that here. Maybe you make the argument that Maryland wins it on another day in another universe, but that's a question for another time. Drexel Dragons proved why they deserve to win this series, and you're right to mention Baron. Fantastic series here, willing this team forward.
Took a little bit to wind up, didn't he? But once he got going, wasn't just the goals. In his own net, making big saves, creating the plays, opening up passing lanes, opening up escape routes as well, when there were so many times where UMD had them under the cosh in a big way. I still don't think, I look at this roster, I look at this series overall, I don't think we're looking at one of the top pack of teams. I think, you know, we're looking at a team that can certainly have a shout for quarter-final berth in the playoffs. Maybe if they have a decent run with, you know, teams that will suit their play style, maybe a chance at the semi-final. But you know, is this team on the level of Boise State? Would this team have won this grand final if they'd been going up against UT Dallas? That's where I still have questions in my mind. But the good news for them, of course, Calvin, is they have 2 weeks until that point, so got to use them wisely.
Exactly. I think at this point in time, you know, you both understand that, yes, there were some weird circumstances, but it's a top finish for Drexel. It's a top 3 finish for Maryland. You just kind of have to take that with you, understand there are adjustments to be made going into next weekend if you play into the playoffs, but you've got time to figure all those things out. I think as far as this particular series is concerned, the flashes that we saw, especially, you know, here you're catching the end of the replays from Game 3 where Maryland made a fantastic statement, and then it continued on with that near goal on that far post. But so many chances for Maryland. I feel like they knew exactly what they needed to execute, but the play maybe fell short on the rebounds and on the second and third chances. When there were opportunities that the Drexel Dragons stumbled on defense, like a couple of times where Drexel caught themselves all in the same corner, then yeah, of course, you're going to get Maryland, or for a lot of other teams that would play against Drexel in that situation to score in that sequence. But when you're at level heading, 3-on-3, nobody's wildly out of position. A lot of Maryland's chances, I feel like, fell short once they had to go past, step 2 or step 3.
To be fair, we also have to consider that they were handicapped in the sense that they were playing with a different roster to what they were yesterday. I think if they're going in with this roster at the beginning of Saturday, then they don't really have any excuses. But JD Knight, in terms of a player profile, is a very different personality to Boog when you look at him out on the field. Again, he likes to go for those more high-risk, high-reward plays, whereas Boog likes to play a little more safe. And I think that suits Turtle and Hexy as a combo, because we did see it yesterday as well up against Cal. Sometimes they look like one of the best duos in the Rally Cry Collegiate series. At other times, they're tripping over each other and leaving their third in a 1v3 situation. So I don't really know how to address that as an issue, whether someone's got to take the lead a little more prominently, whether someone's just got to sit back and accept that they're going to be more oftentimes creator than scorer. But I think that the issues are obvious for this team, and actually that is a silver lining in the clouds, because it means that that is something that you can definitively work on rather than just your all-round.
Right. You'd rather have those very clear, defined mistakes being made so that you...
Yeah.
Obviously, now that we're at the end of weekend number 3, playoffs are quickly approaching. You don't have as much time to make those adjustments, but you back a side like Maryland, and both of these teams, honestly, moving into the playoffs to fix whatever issues they see that they have as quickly as possible. I totally agree with you there. I think where my head is at for, potential in terms of them performing in the playoffs, Drexel Dragons have always been able to hang with teams, whether or not they're winning or losing those series. Much like we joke and jest about UT Dallas always going to Game 7, Drexel Dragons kind of feels like the protege of that sort of mindset, where they can always be in the picture, maybe not to the same level of UT Dallas, but they'll always make you work for it. And I think you could say the same about Terps Esports. It's just about finding what identity they want with what 3 players they provide to the field. As soon as that starts to click for both of those teams respectively, I feel like we get an elevated style and an elevated series from both. But as far as this event is concerned, we got 7 games out of this series, and I don't think anybody's going to complain about that, because both of these teams put on a great show. The Drexel Dragons, as we mentioned, yes, technically a semifinal from the bracket, but this does give them the full 100 points and the victory here in weekend number 3 of Rally Cry Collegiate Series Rocket League play.
Indeed it does, but it does not give them the top of the leaderboards. We already did the maths. We already did the preamble. UT Dallas, despite not being available today, by virtue of picking up the 60 points from, again, their seeding getting them to the grand finals up against the USC Gamecocks there in the semifinal that was not a semifinal. They actually lead the overall board with 130 points. Who would have thought that for the team seeded 14th going into the Collegiate Series? Drexel Dragons, though, their fellow quote-unquote grand finalists, they sit there in second on 115. There's the likes of Boise State and Oklahoma Christian, both of whom have only been spotted once in bracket play. Southern Miss Coca-Cola, always the bridesmaid, but never the bride themselves. We haven't seen them since week number 2. For the likes of UMD, of course, they pick up a number of healthy points that sees them surely across the line and into the playoff. I imagine looking at the likes of New Haven, Pescados, USC, and perhaps Maryville as well. I'm sure there is maths that is already confirmed who is through and who is not. But if I'm sitting there on 25 points, if I am Maryville, I probably would want to, even USC and Pescados, to be honest, I'd want to turn up next week just to, at the very least, try and better my seeding. Because a reminder, it's the top 16 that make it into the playoff, of course, Galgan. And so you'd rather be facing someone from the 8 to 16 bracket than the very, very strong-looking 1 to 8 that currently sits there.
Exactly. And clarification on that as well. Maryville on 25 points. They do have company in UC Berkeley also on 25. The rest of the top 16 filled out by Ohio State Gray and Bowling Green State, both at 20 points. Then Michigan State White at 12. And finally, Oakland and Northeastern at 10. Oakland is another school as well that you'd expect to be much higher up, but just one appearance and an early exit in the quarterfinals has them at only 10 points. So that sets up for a couple of different realities, I think, in the fourth weekend of play. We could get, all of these teams thinking that they've already made it, not turning up to this one and just waiting for playoffs. We could get everybody trying to notch some points. I mean, even those schools like Boise and Oklahoma Christian, they're not the top seed anymore. Do they really want the top seed that bad? I hope they do, but ultimately that's up to them. I think, Relic, I want out of this last weekend good matches from the closely seeded teams and those in the 5th to 16th and even a little bit below 16th. I want to see those teams really battling it out. I've said it every single time we've been on these broadcasts. Those matches are important because not only do you want the points for playoffs, not only do you want to have a shot at winning some of the prize pool, but you want to prove to yourselves that you can beat these equally seeded opposition teams.
Yeah, there are teams, again, you look at it eye value, you look at it on the field, the stats that they're putting up. Yeah, there's folks like Maryville and Boise State and OC, and you're thinking, my goodness me, it won't matter who they face for their first set of runs in the playoff bracket. They should be okay, no matter what. But I think for the likes of UT Dallas, who currently sit pretty, they're in number 1. If I was them, I'd turn up again, because nothing is guaranteed for a team like yourself, which is very good. But are you Boise State good? You want to avoid them for as long as you can in that playoff bracket, because that is a money bracket, Galgan. You want to get as deep into that as you possibly can. So, yeah, I just hope to see as many teams as we can. And, of course, everything will be decided next week, folks. The playoff bracket 16 will be locked in and will be ready to go in March.
So that's how we are situated. 3 weekends down, 1 to go as far as closed qualifiers are concerned. Who will jump to the top of the table and who will be fighting tooth and nail for their spot at 16? They'll have to find out at the same time, same place here for the Rally Cry broadcast. Saturday at 12 p.m. Pacific time. We're back at it with the 4th and final weekend of closed qualifiers for the Rally Cry Collegiate Series featuring Rocket League, presented by the Army National Guard. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. Congratulations to the Drexel Dragons on your total victory here in the 3rd weekend of play. 100 points to the better and a fantastic spot at 2nd in the leaderboard for now. For Relic and everyone else behind the scenes, my name is Galgan. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. We'll see you next weekend.
We get how uncertain the future is. We've come of age in a complex world, face to face with problems we didn't create. So what's going to happen next? We are. Because our future is the future. So we're going to build bridges and hospitals in a day and feed those left in the cold. We're going to do all this and more because we have an appointment with destiny.
Our generation has a choice. Turn away from the world's problems or chase them down. We refuse to sit back and watch them pass us by. Watch us fly ahead. Rise to every challenge and overcome anything. Watch us become the next greatest generation.